guys, Tyler V here again. Today I'm going to give you a demo of Chameleon. Chameleon is a RESS add-on for Statamic. So what it's going to do is measure the browser width, set that width into a cookie, and then read that cookie back through the server into your Statamic templates. So it'll load into a conditional and then conditionally load HTML based on the device width or really the browser width. So right now the device that I'm on is 1440 wide, and so the HTML is loading that is between, that number is between these two numbers here, which I arbitrarily set in the code, which you'll see in a minute. If I shrink this down and then refresh it again, you can see now a new HTML element is loading. And continuing on down through the spectrum, we can see those things continue to update upon refresh. So let's take a look at the code real quick. We're setting a Chameleon data tag which loads in your JavaScript. This can be set into the head if you wanted to. It's just some really simple JavaScript. There's no attributes or anything on this one because those attributes will be set inside of wherever you're using Chameleon. So we can see here that we've got this kind of rather complicated if and if else if statement, and then it's kind of all wrapped inside of a larger if Chameleon tag. And this is just kind of a safeguard against there being no cookies or JavaScript's disabled. If that's a concern, then you're going to want to wrap whatever code you're kind of conditionally setting inside of a tag outside of that. If that's not a concern, you can just use this block here. So once we get inside of that, we can start setting this. Chameleon spits out a value, a width value, which then is going to be, you can kind of use that inside of these conditional statements using just your basic PHP conditionals. And then it's going to spit out different HTML based on what that width is. It's pretty cool. But there is a major limitation just in the nature of RESS, and that is that it's not a replacement for responsive design. It's not a replacement for responsive CSS and media queries. I would say this is more of an adaptive solution. So once something changes and is refreshed, this change will start to take effect. So let's say if this was some sort of a menu item or some sort of list that, or maybe a grid system that was dependent on displaying correctly based on the browser width, it's not going to change until something's refreshed. So keep that in mind as you're using the tag. Actually, let's dive right into a real world example. This is a blog I built a while back for Statamic. And you can see we're loading in, each blog post has some truncated text. So I'm using the truncate tag. I've actually got the code open for that right here. So we're using Chameleon, setting that if statement with an else in case there's no cookies. This will be the default value. But then we've got this loading or this loading based on whether or not Chameleon is greater than or equal to 800. And so right now it's greater than 800, and so this 100 for the truncate is loading. If we pull this down to below 800, and I'm just going to hope this is less than 800, you can see we're loading in a much smaller, a 50 value. So instead of spitting out two different sets of HTML and then hiding that with CSS, we only spit out one type of HTML, which is really useful because every time there's an entry in blog, that code's going to run. So instead of running two codes every single time there's an entry, you just load one based on your window width, which is really handy. And also, you've got to notice here that if you go underneath 800, nothing's going to change until you refresh. But the design isn't broken. So it's kind of a really nice way to add some user experience, but keep in mind that it can't break your code until it refreshes, because especially if someone's like on an iPhone and they're viewing this, and I have to admit this is not the best mobile design. And then they flip that design over to landscape. They didn't refresh anything. You've got to make sure that that value maybe is in between, I don't know, that 320 and whatever the height is for an iPhone 600 something. Just kind of maybe think about putting that value in between them so that whatever's loading in here is loading for both of those values. Same for a tablet, whatever you're targeting. Just kind of be aware that what they load, they're probably not going to be resizing and refreshing just to make sure your content's up to date. You're going to have to assume that what they load is what they've got when using this tag, and so kind of be aware of that, that it's not a replacement for responsive CSS, which will change, like this sidebar over here will disappear once it gets to a certain width. You can't kind of use this tag to do that, because that would continue to be there until a refresh occurred. And same goes for if you increase the size, that's going to be smaller text until a refresh occurs. So just be aware of that. But it is still a really powerful tag for doing some of that type of stuff. Loading this conditional HTML instead of loading up a bunch of it, and then just kind of using CSS to display none or hide it, or JavaScript or whatever. This is a server-side solution for only printing out what you've asked for, what your device requires, but it is adaptive. It's not really responsive, but that's okay as long as you're aware of that. But that's Chameleon. Works really great in tandem with Elixir for really loading up only what's required instead of kind of hacking that together with CSS, kind of that RESS solution of mixing both of them. I hope you all enjoy it, hope it serves you well, and thanks for taking a little bit of time out with me to let me show you how it works.